And there you go. Okay, cool. So little itinerary on what we're gonna do for session 4. We're gonna start off by looking at where we are on our journey, just a little quick recap on what we've learned in the previous, and also an exam guide review for session 4, specifically ensuring successful operation of a cloud solution. And from there, we're going to dive deep into the material, a little bit of hands-on learning as well, just on the console itself, and also maybe some case scenarios. And then we're going to look at some preview actions for the next week and how to prepare yourself for the next session. And we're going to end it off with a Q&A. So starting with where we are on our journey. So currently we're at week 4, not technically, just quote unquote, because we are doing bi-weekly. So week 4, it is recommended that you've completed the on-demand training and hands-on lab practice prior to this event, but definitely don't feel guilty that you've not done so. We understand that you have obligations, that you can't actually, throw in 8 hours a week or whatever to actually complete all these. That's what our sessions are for, to provide you more knowledge without having to commit too much, basically. So looking at the on-demand training, we were able to look at the Elastic Google Cloud Infrastructure Scaling on Automation Lab or Quest. And for the hands-on lab practice, it would be automating infrastructure on Google Cloud with Terraform. And do keep in mind that all these skill badges, as you accumulate, you can definitely share this amongst your network and show that you have gone through this type of curriculum to actually boost your knowledge. So I would highly recommend for you to actually make sure that your public profile on your Quick Labs account or Cloud Skills Boost account to be turned on. And then from there, you could actually share the link to that profile from your LinkedIn, resume, and so on. And also, as dropped in the chat by Roman, feel free to also fill up or make use of the beautiful app that was made by Roman. So it's a badge tracker app, and it will also help you keep track on your progress so far. And it hint, it will also help you in terms of if you want to win some swag or something like that. All right, so just a quick recap on session 2. We were able to look at setting up a cloud solution environment, planning and configuring a cloud solution as well. So just to touch base real quick, we know that Google Cloud services are associated with a project, and this is how they are billed and tracked based on your billing account, and also how permissions are given to operate. So there are some key items to take note of when creating a project, such as paying attention to its name and immutable things like the project ID and project number. And the other main thing to remember when it comes to organizing your project is always remember that it's a hierarchical process. So starting from the organization node, you could stem out into folders that contain projects. Of course, folders are optional, but it does help in terms of keeping the cleanliness and your whole organization tidy, basically. So we were also able to look at roles in Google Cloud, and there are 3 main types of roles that can be applied to your Google Cloud users and resources, and that's it. Do you by chance know of the 3 options that I mentioned? If you do, go ahead and drop it in the chat before I actually spill the beans. So basically, when you're trying to create a role for a specific person, organization, workspace, resource, and so on, you could select off of 3 options. What are those 3 options? Unfortunately, if you get it right, I can't give you a gift, but I would acknowledge that you have been keeping up with our sessions. There we go. All right, Muhammad got it right. And he's actually the first person to actually get it right as well. So there are basic roles, predefined roles, and also custom roles when specifying your preferred roles. So Besides that, we also looked at different methods to interact with Google Cloud resources and services, and the common ones being the console itself, the Cloud SDK, and Cloud Shell. All right, so that's a little bit on session 2. As for session 3, we were able to look at deploying and implementing compute engine resources. But besides compute engine, we were also able to dive into Google Kubernetes Engine, or GKE, App Engine, Cloud Run, and Cloud Functions. And we also looked at implementing the best fit data solutions, networking resources, and Cloud Marketplace, and Cloud Deployment Manager. So that's that from our previous sessions. As for our session today, we're going to look at ensuring successful operation of a cloud solution. So say that you've successfully deployed your cloud solution. You want to ensure its lifespan in case of an outage or changes in the organization, billing-wise, and so on. This session will cover the basics of being able to modify your existing cloud solution using best fit methods, troubleshoot and debug problems that occur, and most importantly, keeping track of the health of your cloud solutions and being aware of having to come up with remediation processes before the tragedy actually hits. So diving into the material straight away, we're going to start by looking at managing compute engine resources. So starting off with compute engine, we're going to take a look at a few action items that we could take, how to back up your instances, and how we can leverage various platforms to do just that. So over here, Google Cloud Console, Cloud Shell, Cloud SDK, and so on. But before we dive into or look at a few hands-on example, we're gonna go ahead and look at. So just a quick introduction on compute engine, just to refresh your brain real quick. Compute engine is basically the equivalent of physical servers that you're used to, but it runs inside GCP. So it also provides the user to have the option to configure various things, hence it being categorized as infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. So both predefined and custom machine types allow you to choose how much memory, how much CPU you want. You choose the type of disk you want, whether you want to use standard hard drives, SSDs, and so on. And because of your configurations, that's where the billing kind of comes into place. So my biggest advice is that when you're taking the Associate Cloud Engineer Certification exam, this is definitely one of the topics that they touch base on. They usually give a case scenario where the user may have a budget in place, and they kind of ask you on what compute engine configurations fit that case scenario best. So say that they have a very tight budget, then you want to go ahead and lower the hardware and software just to make sure it doesn't spike up, right? So besides that, you could also configure the networking interfaces and operating systems to even have a combination of Linux and Windows machine. So this quick overview is some of the compute engine features. So we have machine right sizing. We could also provide startup scripts and availability policies, whether you want it to be a preemptible instance, and also load balancing. And these three over here is basically the billing options that will be put in place based on your instance. So it is a per second billing, sustained use discounts that for instances that are used for a long time, committed use discounts as well. So over here, I'm gonna drop in the chat the link to a reference document sheet of the compute engine CLI. So go.com/SDK reference compute. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and show you real quick what that looks like. So we have this reference document, and what's amazing about Google Cloud is that they provide all sorts of documentation for all the resources and tools that they may have, and also guides and quick tutorials, and also short courses as well. So definitely make use of that, just to brush up on your knowledge. I don't believe it's possible for anyone to remember exactly every command or method that is currently in place. So I would highly recommend to, pin or bookmark this sort of pages. So over here starts off giving us the name, the synopsis, what kind of commands we could use, the groups, and other flags possible. All right, so with that, we're gonna go ahead and look at the console real quick. Let's go ahead and create our first compute engine instance. So as you can see, I'm actually utilizing the QuickLabs platform for my console. I just want to make sure that the billing doesn't affect my actual account in case I forget to delete a resource. So I'm gonna go ahead and look at create instance. So over here, the name, I'm gonna leave it at default, and we can see a few things like machine family. So from ensuring the successful operation of a cloud solution, you wanna make sure that you know how to modify these changes and what exactly are these changes, and how they may affect, billing or availability and things like that. We also have the boot disk, identity and API access. We have the service count that is defaulted out here, a firewall, and any advanced options. Let's go ahead and hit create. So as we're waiting for that to spin up, let's go ahead and look into our exam guide real quick. So we're supposed to know how to manage a single VM instance, such methods such as to start, stop, edit, or delete, remotely connecting to the instance using SSH, attaching GPU to a new instance, and installing necessary dependencies, looking at the inventory, working with snapshots, images, instance groups, and also making sure that we know how to use the console and shell for all of these methods. So looking back into here, we have this spin up. That's amazing. Let's go ahead and try to interact with that using the Cloud Shell real quick. So instead of, so there are a few ways to modify your instance for sure. So Cloud Shell being one, or if you wanted to go in and use the platform to actually hit edit to, make modifications, that's totally fine as well. So let's start by being a little more hands-on using the shell. So let's say gcloud compute, I stated here, gcloud compute, and we could also say, or use the help flag to help us learn more about the syntax. So as you can see over here, it's showing us the same thing actually. So you could read about it if you didn't want to look into the documentation itself. Okay, is this too small of a font for you? Okay, I could make this. This is better. Should I go a little bigger? Okay, I will probably stick with medium. Do tell me or drop in the chat if it still is too small to read. Anyways, so to quit the man page, you want to just type in Q, and that's how you quit. So say that we want to work with our instance, which is called instance 1. Let's go ahead and type in gcloud compute instances, and let's look at what specific syntax we have to use. So it says here, you have to provide So the instance name, and then we could also use some of the commands as following. So say that you want to modify it and you didn't want to use the console, you could use this. So you could add tags, attach disk, create itself, and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and use describe to actually learn more about our instance. So let's say gcloud compute instances describe. Oh, I did not provide the name of my instance. Okay, let's go ahead and hit authorize. Okay, and you want to make sure that it's in the right zone and region. It is, so I'll say yes. And we have all the metadata and configurations up here. So things like whether it's IP forwarding, the disk itself, and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and remote connect into our instance. So there are a few ways. So one being gcloud compute SSH, or you want to just click on this SSH button as it works as well. Let me type this out real quick. Okay. I think I'm missing the name. Okay. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and say yes to create SSH keys. And I'm just gonna hit enter for the passphrase because it's temporary, so no one's gonna try to access it after, right? I'm gonna say yes to verify the exact instance itself. And you can see here, it's a little different from where we started off. It still has your student ID, but it says instance 1. So basically clarifying that you are remotely accessing or communicating through the instance itself. So it doesn't have your project ID or project ID in yellow anymore. So from here, let's go ahead and try to install a Python 3. Okay. Python. Let's go ahead and install Python 3 in our instance. And I saw that someone mentioned that the font being large would be better. So I'll go ahead and enlarge that real quick. Thank you for notifying me. All right, from here, let's go ahead and type in just a Linux command to install Python 3. So I'm gonna say target install Python 3. No worries. All right, it shows that Python 3 has been installed and is already the newest version. So let's go ahead and try to run that. Okay, seems that Python is, or the IDE is working. So if I say print hello, it should work fine. So it's not necessarily one of the use cases for a virtual machine instance for sure, unless you are really willing to spend that much amount of money to just print hello. I'm not judging, but it's not really common, I would say. But yeah, let's go ahead and exit this real quick. Exit from the connection, you just want to go ahead and type in exit, and you are out of your instance, and you can see you are currently at the cloud. Your ID being set as well. Okay, cool. So back into our slides. So that's compute engine, modifying a little bit and all that. Let's look at snapshots. So a snapshot being quote unquote picture of your original instance, of which contains part of your previous snapshot, but unless it's the first snapshot, then it would be part of the original instance. So think of it as a train or a chain per se. So your original instance and snapshot 1 would be part of your original instance, and snapshot 2 would be part of your snapshot 1. That makes sense a bit? I hope it did. And also, if you were to remove any snapshots in between, the way it works is that it has to go through again. It doesn't actually there doesn't actually manually change the parts that were copied already or screenshotted. So as for images, a machine image is a compute engine resource that stores all the configuration, metadata, permissions, and data from multiple disks of a virtual machine instance. And you can use a machine image in many system maintenance, backup and recovery, and instance cloning scenarios. So let's go ahead and look at creating a snapshot and also an image through the console. So really easy. If we were to look in the console, you just got to go ahead and scroll down to storage and look at snapshots. Let's go ahead and try to create our first snapshot, right? So you have to specify your name and obviously your source disk. So instance one being the virtual machine instance disk that I want to base off. Then you want to look at the type. And if you see snapshot, it's best for long-term backup and disaster recovery, whereas archive is best for cost efficient. Again, I'm gonna specify, you wanna make sure you take note of anything that has to do with pricing and billing, as it does occur very commonly in the certification exam. And from here, we have multi-regional or regional, multi-regional being one of the more expensive ones. And latency is also a common thing. Any labels you want to put for your snapshot, encryption type is Google Manage. We'll keep it that way. And if you want to look at the equivalent command line, you could click on that. And as you can see, you could see from here exactly how the command line equivalent will look like. So some flags would just be, or looking at the required statement would just be create and then the name of your snapshot. And then the flag would be the project, source disk, the zone, and storage location. So let's go ahead and hit create. So your snapshot will be created. And as for another part of snapshots, you could look at snapshot schedules. There isn't one right now, but let's go ahead and look at creating one. So basically, it's like a cron job. It will run on a regular basis to create your snapshots, and also not only just accumulating creating snapshots. It also has a deletion rule where it's up to you to modify whether you want to keep all of the snapshots, which is quite pricey and also quite heavy for sure, or if you wanted to delete the snapshots that are of a very old version. Currently, there are only two options. I'm not sure if they are thinking of adding more, but yeah, only two for now. Let's go ahead and hit cancel. So let's look at our first snapshot real quick, right? Okay, so it has all of these metadata properties, and an equivalent rest would be the equivalent rest response if we're trying to access our snapshot through the REST API. Okay, and from the snapshot, you could also create a disk itself. So that's also a case scenario. And as for images, we want to go ahead and create an image, right? But before creating an image, we want to make sure that our instance has stopped running basically. So this is one of the state actions or methods that we're supposed to know prior to going to the certification exam. So what you want to do is actually go into the console, search for an instance, click on more app options, and you just want to go ahead and click on stop. And as you can see over here, if the shutdown doesn't complete within 90 seconds, the instance is forced to halt. This can lead to file system corruption, but we're going to take the risk. So yeah, and it will notify us if the instance has successfully stopped running. And from there, let's just go into images. So all these images, if I'm not mistaken, is probably default, or it might be the Quick Labs lab specific one that was created, but we're not gonna touch any of this, not for now. Yeah, so far so good. Feel free to also chime in the chat if you need any clarification on anything. But yeah, we're just waiting for an instance to start real quick. But I guess we could look a little bit more into the documentation, right? So let's look at snapshots and images. So for snapshots, we have, ooh, this is a lot. Okay, so let's look at an overview. And these are the commands that you could run. You want to create, you want to delete, get the IAM policy, or if you want to just list all the snapshots that you have, and so on and so forth. And a few variants are also available. There's alpha compute snapshots or beta compute snapshots. I'm only more familiar with the beta commands because I know it means beta version. Alpha, I'm not really sure what alpha stands for. If you do know though, besides the obvious that alpha being like alpha wolf or whatever, but how does that relate with beta versioning? Interesting thought. All right, and for that we also can look at images. So, oof, there's a lot of options here. Okay, there we go, images. And quick little overview. Commands are quite similar, but obviously different. So there's IAM, you can add IAM policy binding, describe the latest image from an image family, export it, import one, and so on and so forth. All right, Moa has the answer in the chat. Cool. Alpha is a limited availability test before releases are cleared for more widespread use. Wow. Okay. Interesting. New knowledge. I like that. Thank you, Maman. Yeah. So Brijesh mentioned, but no doc access during exam. Yes, that is true. But the only command line questions that appear in the certification exam are rather simple. So say that it's usually use cases like, oh, I want to create a compute image. How do I do that? Or which command do I take? So it's usually just gcloud compute images, create. Really simple ones, usually they kind of just forego all the flags and all of that, because I would say that is quite harsh if they really do want to, configure a whole solution without documentation referencing. So I would say don't worry too much about the syntaxes. You don't have to memorize it all, but you have to be able to actually recognize at least. All right, so looking back here, we know that the instance have stopped, so that means we can create the image. Let's go ahead and hit create image. All right, I'm gonna leave image one as it is. What type of source it is. So if you wanted to create an image from a snapshot, it's also possible. I'm gonna say disk, let's say instance one. All right, this disk is attached to a running instance. Create an image, you need to stop the instance. I did stop the instance. Let me go ahead and refresh this. Okay. So as mentioned here, another option is to actually click on keep instance running, which is not recommended as some failures may occur. All right, so it looks like it's going well now. And so this is how you create an image. All you gotta do is hit create. Let's look at the command line. So it's very simple, fairly straightforward. And so this is what you could expect for a certification exam, right? So I would say this would be one of the maximum answers in terms of length of characters. And all these optional flags is basically just something that we would use on a daily case, not something that would probably appear in certification exam. But if it does, I am so sorry. But yeah, let's go ahead and close that out. I am not going to create an image. We're just going to go back to our slides. Cool. Okay, from there, let's go ahead and look at instance groups. So an instance group is a collection of virtual machine instances that you can manage as a single entity. So Compute Engine offers two kinds of VM instance groups, managed and unmanaged. So managed being the more preferred one because it allows you to operate apps on multiple identical VMs. You can make your workload scalable and highly available by taking advantage of the automated managed instance group services, including auto scaling, auto healing, regional deployment, or multiple zone per se, and automatic updating. Whereas unmanaged instance groups lets you load balance across a fleet of VMs entirely on your own. So if you want to manage all of the back end load balancing, take health recovery and all that, that would be what you would opt for. So let's look at instance groups real quick. So it's over here. We're just gonna click on instance groups. So say that you want to create an instance group, you actually have to go ahead and create an instance template first to base it off of. So we're gonna go here, let's say create instance template, and I'm just gonna leave all the name at default because I am very not creative with names. So that's that. I'm gonna keep all the machine types and all of that default as well. Let's go ahead and hit create. Right, it should okay, should be done here. Let's go ahead and look at instance groups. If we go ahead and create instance group, you will see an option over here that you have to base off of a instance template. So I'm just gonna go ahead and wait for the instance template to be up. All right, we have this over here. Let's click on that. And as you can see over here, we have managed instance groups and unmanaged instance groups. So stateless being that do stateless serving and batch processing, and stateful being having data stored in their persistent data storage or configurations, such as having databases or legacy applications. So if I leave it as stateless, assuming that it's more static application, let's look at location real quick. We have single zone, or if we wanted to have a higher availability, multiple zones, but the trade-off is the latency. Auto scaling, the minimum number of instances and the maximum number of instances, and auto scaling matrix to help determine when to scale the group. We have CPU utilization, or if you wanted to add cloud monitoring matrix, HTTP load balancing utilization called pub sub Q. We could definitely do that. And also cooldown period, specify how long it takes for your app to initialize from boot time until it is ready to serve, and auto healing. So recreates VM instances if your app cannot be reached by the health check. All right, let's what you gotta do is just click create. So I'm not gonna go through that. I'm gonna cancel that. Just want to let you see what health check is real quick. So if you want to create a health check, naming and all that, what port to have it call on, proxy protocol, and also basically the health criteria to determine how health is determined, how often to check, how long to wait for a response, successful or failed attempts ratio per se. So we have all these, and this would be hit on your VM instances, right? So let's go back into our slides. And we're gonna look now into managing Google Kubernetes Engine. So over here we have viewing current, running cluster inventory. We're also going to look at artifact registry and also auto scaling configurations. And as the previous session, looking into the console and the shell. And the only extra one would be kube control. Right, hit next. Over here we have Google Kubernetes Engine, providing a managed environment for deploying, managing, and scaling your containerized applications using Google infrastructure. And just a quick Kubernetes overview. All these syntaxes will appear while we're handling the container. So node being the smallest unit of computing hardware, or in other words, the instance or virtual machine instance itself. A cluster is just a pool of nodes, and pods are unit of replication. And over here we have a documentation on kube control commands. So let's go ahead and look at that actually. Kube control. We're gonna look into the official page from Kubernetes for that. Okay, here we go. I'll go ahead and drop this in the chat as well. While we're working in the Cloud Shell, we're also gonna be able to use this CLI to actually manage our Kubernetes engine. All right, so let's hit or look at a quick intro into Kubernetes on the console. So I'm just gonna Kubernetes engine, and let's go ahead and start by creating a cluster. So over here, autopilot or standard. So you basically are prompted to choose a mode of operation. So if you use autopilot, your cluster is regional by default. But if you use standard, it creates a zonal cluster, or sorry, you manage your cluster. All right, let's go ahead and choose create autopilot real quick. Okay, there you go. Roman said some people pronounce kube control as kubectl or kubectl. So I saw online saying that the correct term is kube control, but hey, who's to say what's absolutely wrong, right? I like saying kubectl as well. Yeah. So looking at your autopilot cluster, what's amazing is that you have automated node provisioning, scaling, maintenance, VPC native traffic routing for public or private clusters, security and telemetry, so monitoring and things like that. So over here, if you go ahead and hit create, it's just gonna spin up real quick. I'm gonna actually let it spin up. It does take quite a while from what I remember, just because. But from there, let's go ahead and try to use kube control on the Cloud Shell to create a deployment, expose it on the cluster, and also just look at the running pods. But as we wait for it to load, let's go ahead and continue real quick because I realized that we're at 8:42 EST. So anyways, we have managing app engine and cloud run resources as the next topic. So we're going to look at adjusting application traffic splitting parameters, setting scaling parameters for auto scaling instances, and determine whether to run cloud run or cloud run for Anthos. So real quick, app engine is made out of a single application resource that consists of one or more services, and each service can be configured to use different runtimes and to operate with different performance settings. And you deploy versions where you can actually roll back and such. Each version then runs within one or more instances, depending on the traffic splitting configurations. I'll hit next, and here we are at Cloud Run. So it's basically a platform, a fully managed serverless platform where you can use to actually just run your containerized apps without having to care at all the infrastructure of it. And as you can see, new customers get $300 in free credits to spend on Cloud Run, and all customers get 2 million requests free per month, and it's not charged against your credits. And looking real quick at Cloud Run or versus Cloud Run for Anthos. Cloud Run is a fully managed and completely serverless product, while Cloud Run for Anthos offers a serverless developer experience on a shared responsibility Anthos platform. So it's usually used only for people who are already using Anthos. So Cloud Run for Anthos can easily deploy your workloads across hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Hence, over here, under Kubernetes, you can see that the GKE is on GCP and Anthos. So plus, you can also easily switch from Cloud Run to Cloud Run from Anthos or vice versa, all without changing your application code. Yeah, let's go ahead and look into our Kubernetes real quick. It is still loading. So yeah, I'm just gonna move on. And we have over here managing storage and database solutions. So we're just gonna learn to manage and secure objects in and between cloud storage buckets, object lifecycle management policies, executing queries using through Cloud SQL, BigQuery, Cloud Spanner, Data Store, Bigtable, and so on and so forth. Estimating data storage resources, backing up and restoring database instances, specifically called SQL and data store, and also reviewing job status in Dataproc, Dataflow, or BigQuery. So real quick, cloud storage is a high performance internet scale, simple administration, does not require capacity management, data encryption and rest. This is usually the default for most resources, if not all. So data encryption is transit by default from Google to endpoint, and online and offline import services are available. You'll also have to be able to identify the best fit storage options, as it will indefinitely be asked in an exam, such as the frequency of retrieval of data. So say that your data is only accessed after a long time, after a long period of time, then it will be stored under say archive storage. Whereas applications that prefer high performance and are and the data is frequently accessed, then it should be stored under standard storage option. And besides that, we also have to look at the few other resources that's offered by GCP to actually give out the best fit option, especially in the certification exam. It's definitely one of the common questions as well. So storage options say that it's an object that you're gonna go ahead and look at cloud storage. If it's a relational object, then Cloud SQL, Cloud Spanner. Non-relational, so we have Cloud Firestore, Cloud Bigtable, and Warehouse for BigQuery. So over here you can see also what use cases these storage options are for. So over here we have more of a blob binary type of object, and over here relational database type of objects, non-relational, and also analytics, data analytics, dashboards and such, that for a BigQuery. And gonna look back here. It's still loading, so it might be the case that we're unable to look at creating a deployment, all that, but feel free to look at the documentation here. So what you gotta do is create a deployment. I'm not sure if this is here, but you could create a deployment. Then you want to go ahead and actually expose that deployment. And a few options are over here, and then you also could delete your use case and all that. There are also some Google tutorials online. Let me go ahead and search that. Kubernetes tutorial or GKE. I'll say GCP as well. Okay. So let's look at deploying a containerized web app tutorial. So over here, you can see the objectives, how to package a web app into a Docker image and upload the Docker image into artifact registry and creating a GKE cluster, deploying the app to the cluster, auto scaling, exposing it to the internet, and also deploying a new version. It might show how to roll back versioning as well, but I can't say for sure. But yeah. Let me go ahead and drop this into the chat. It's definitely a great tool to look at. So yeah, if you look through the guidelines or instructions over here, it does mention it's definitely more in depth than Quick Labs, I would say. So definitely feel free to look over that. But as for now, we're going to look at managing networking resources. So adding a subnet to an existing VPC, expanding a subnet to have more IP addresses, reserving static external or internal IP addresses for your virtual machine instances, and working with Cloud DNS, Cloud NAT, load balancers, firewall, and firewall rules. So real quick, Cloud DNS is a scalable, reliable, and managed authoritative domain name system running on the same infrastructure as Google. So it translates requests for domain names into IP addresses, whereas CloudNet or Cloud Network Address Translation lets certain resources without external IP addresses create outbound connections to the internet. So real quick, if you look at virtual private cloud, it is a virtual version of a physical network implemented inside of Google's production network using Andromeda. As speaking of IP addresses of a subnet, Google Cloud VPCs let you increase the IP addresses or IP address space of any subnets without any outages or shutdown or downtime. So if we were to roll back real quick, it does mention how to that we are supposed to know how to expand a subnet to have more IP addresses prior to the certification exam. So this is that. So basically, it does give you flexibility and growth options to meet your needs, but a few things to remember that the new subnet should not overlap any other subnets within the VPC in any region. And also, the subnet must stay inside the RFC 1918 addresses spaces, which is the common formatting for address space. And the new network range must be larger than the original. So basically, it can expand but not shrink. And remember this being the opposite, right? So you have to provide a prefix value that is a smaller number for it to actually be expanded in terms of address space. So over here can be expanded from, as you can see, this prefix number 20 is increased to prefix number 16. Alternatively, you could also convert the auto mode subnetwork to a custom mode subnetwork to increase the IP range further, but also just avoid large subnets in general. And last but not least, we have monitoring and logging, which is, I would say, one of the most highly sought out tools in GCP. So you will look at cloud monitoring, cloud logging, and things like that. And also cloud trace, cloud debug, and just to check the health of your tools, resources, and cloud solutions. So there are a few monitoring and debugging tools in GCP. We have monitoring to just ensure your health or give an overview, logging to just look at the logs of your deployed solution, the step-by-step scenario. Trace is to look back at, say that a bug occurred somewhere or an error occurred somewhere. You can use trace to actually roll back and to look into the source itself. Debugger, as its name implies, it's a debugging tool. Error reporting and profiler as well. So that's basically the whole monitoring and debugging tools. I'm not gonna talk too much into it. We have 5 minutes left, so I'm just gonna move on into previewing actions for the next week. So as you can see in week, technically next week would be having to look at week 5, which is the on-demand training for reliable Google Cloud infrastructure design and process. So it is an on-demand training. You are highly recommended to go full out with the course, but if you are unable to complete it, don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're absolutely unable to take on the certification exam, right? So after session 5, we have the last session, which is getting started with Google Kubernetes Engine, deploying to Kubernetes in Google Cloud, and reviewing maybe sample questions. But also in between that, we have our office hours, and that is also the perfect opportunity for you to actually go over sample questions and also refresh your memory on the knowledge gained between sessions, right? And so I mentioned in the group that there is a participation badge. So I'm just going to drop this here. You just want to go ahead and go into this link. Let me type it in the chat. And you can redeem your Google Developer certification badge. So I personally didn't look too much into it, but I'm sure you just have to create a Google developer's profile or something like that, and then maybe just make sure to mention that you are following the Road Certification Associate Cloud Engineer collaboration event between GDG Lawrence, GDG Cloud Twin Cities, and that should be it. But if there are any other problems, make sure to just reach out to Slack and we will help you out as much as we can. And that's a wrap for now. And I'm going to leave the space for any questions that you may have. If you wanted to chime in real quick, and yeah.
Thank you, Elaine. That was an amazing review of week 4. So thank you so much. I just wanted to also, reiterate if anybody else has any questions. Oh, John says, is that thing created? Oh, you mean the badge, like the badge that she dropped? Like whenever you get that badge, it's not one of the badges for the certification. It's just like a participation badge for joining these sessions. So if that's what you mean, yes. But no, I just wanted to say again, thank you, Elaine. I loved, in particular, the walkthrough that you gave on the Google Cloud Console, which is very useful. For those of you taking the exam, again, I don't think they're going to ask questions. And now that I recall, they don't ask specific questions about the Google Cloud Console, but it's always good because it cements the knowledge on those topics, because you really want something more tangible to learn those topics as opposed to just the theory. By going inside the Google Cloud the same way that Elaine did it and walk through like each, how to create instances, how to create an instance group based on an instance template, the Kubernetes cluster and all of that. It's good to learn it there, and then that cements the knowledge. So I just wanted to again open it up one more time. Again, of course, let's give her a round of applause. Amazing session. Thank you so much. Yes,
thank you, Elaine. I'm with the special effects.
You are the special effect. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And again, let's open it up one more time for questions for folks. Another reminder: next week, next Thursday, we're going to be doing again more exam review on these topics on the week 4. Session 4 topics. So make sure that if you haven't caught up, make sure to catch up because we're going to go over some of those questions as well. Yeah. So anybody else? Kevin, Jeffrey, Linda, anybody has anything?
Just thank you so much for everything you do every week to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, on behalf of myself and so many others that are here, I do want to repeat that. Just thank you for what you're doing, Elaine and Roman and Kevin and Linda, myself, everybody that's encouraging people to show up and everybody that is showing up. This is a great opportunity and people are really excited about it. And look at that, even at the end of the night now, we've got so many people still here and people are making a real difference in their life just by learning, and we're just sharing, and it's so great.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah. Kevin, anything from you? I know that
my journey is also with the rest of the group because I'm like spending my nights and days and trying to study some of this stuff, and there's a lot of interesting material go through, right? So, but as you go through it, you have to basically sometimes to try to remember some of the stuff because there's so much material. I'm not sure I can remember everything I learned from the course itself. And also doing some of the quick lab. But I think I need to find some time for myself, and before the exam, I need to prep for the whole week, maybe a week or two, maybe more, just to get ready.
That is true, and thank you, Kevin, for your testimonial. I can also attest. I can also say the same thing for myself. Even though I already have the cloud architect certification, I wanted to get the associate cloud engineer because I wanted to be in the trenches with you guys. And me just going over the topics, I've also again realized you see, there's always opportunities to learn, room for growth, and to always really get better. And that's what I love, the fact that everybody's joining, everybody's finding this community where we all support each other and we help one another become better, and of course elevate our professional careers by pursuing these type of certification, which are really hot in the industry right now. To say again, everybody who joins, thank you so much. Look, like Jeff said, we still have a very great turnout every week. Please continue getting your badges. And yes, if you just joined today, you are gonna get the credits for 3 months because you joined this one, and you still have time to pursue the certification if you want to do that on your own. If you want to continue joining our sessions, our exam reviews, we're gonna continue doing those even after this session continues. But make sure that you complete all your badges because that is what's going to give you the opportunity to get one of the vouchers that we're going to be offering at the end of this cycle. So make sure to complete your badges, focus on that, get your badges so that then you can truly be prepared and have the confidence needed to go and take that certification. Great.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and keep doing what you are doing, and you will arrive on the other side of the bridge, right? I don't know how they say it in English, but the other.
We all got it. We got it.
It's my saying.
Yeah, we got exactly what you meant. So yeah, if no questions from anybody, just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Elaine, one more time. This was an amazing session. I loved it. Make sure to join for the upcoming sessions. Next Thursday, we're going to be reviewing more exam questions. Keep getting those badges. Keep being awesome, and keep getting cloud knowledge. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night. See you on the next session.
See you.
Thank you for joining, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for joining us.